LinkedIn presents.
I argue that we should give at least minimal moral consideration to all vertebrates, many invertebrates, and many near-future AI systems in the spirit of caution and humility based on the best information and arguments currently available.
Good morning. I'm your host, Michael Kovnat, and this is the Next Big Idea Daily. Now, lately, there's been a lot of debate about artificial intelligence. Is it going to destroy humanity or save it? Is it really capable of thinking, of consciousness? But perhaps the most provocative question we can ask is, does AI have rights? What responsibilities do we have to these increasingly sophisticated systems? These questions might sound futuristic, but Jeff Sebo, a leading thinker in environmental ethics, argues we've been avoiding them for too long, not just for AI, but for animals, plants, and even entire ecosystems. In his new book, The Moral Circle: Who Matters, What Matters, and Why, Jeff makes the case that we need to expand our ethical concerns beyond humans. If there's any chance that AI, or a fish, or an octopus, or even a fungus has sentience, agency, or moral significance, then we should act as if they do, because the way we treat them today will shape the kind of world we live in tomorrow. Here's Jeff to share 5 big ideas from his book right after this quick break.
From LinkedIn News, I'm Jessie Hempel, host of the Hello Monday podcast. Start your week with the Hello Monday podcast. We'll navigate career pivots. We'll learn where happiness fits in. Listen to Hello Monday with me, Jessie Hempel, on the LinkedIn Podcast Network or wherever you get your podcasts.
Have you been feeling the effects of stress, burnout, or anxiety at work? Listen to the Anxious Achiever podcast to rethink the relationship between your career and your mental health. Get the Anxious Achiever wherever you find your podcasts, and walk away with practical advice you can implement today.
Hi, my name is Jeff Sebo, and I direct the Center for Environmental and Animal Protection and the Center for Mind, Ethics, and Policy at New York University. And I'm here today to tell you about my book, The Moral Circle: Who Matters, What Matters, and Why. We share the world with a vast number and wide range of non-humans. That includes other animals, vertebrates and invertebrates. It includes other living beings, plants and fungi. Increasingly, it includes AI systems, robots, chatbots. And in all of these cases, we have disagreement and uncertainty about which beings matter and what we owe them. So how can we make decisions together about how to interact with such a vast number and wide range of non-humans despite substantial ongoing disagreement and uncertainty about these ethical and scientific issues? That is the question this book addresses. So we can here focus on 5 key ideas that come out in the book, starting with idea number 1: if you might matter, we should assume that you do. In ethics, we have a lot of disagreement and uncertainty about what it takes to matter. Some people think you need to be sentient, able to consciously experience pleasure and pain. Other people think you need to be agentic, able to set and pursue your own goals based on your own beliefs and desires. Other people think you need to be alive, able to perform basic life functions associated with survival and reproduction. Now, in science, we also have disagreement and uncertainty about which beings have these features. With other mammals and birds, we can be confident based on the information currently available that they are not only alive, but also sentient and agentic and morally significant. They can feel, they can think, and they matter for their own sakes. But what about the other vertebrates, reptiles, amphibians, fishes? What about invertebrates with more distributed cognitive systems? What about plants and fungi with radically different kinds of cognitive systems? What about chatbots and robots that are made out of silicon instead of being made out of carbon? In these cases, we might genuinely be uncertain about whether it feels like anything to be them, for example, for a long time. Well, I argue that we should not wait for certainty before taking basic steps to treat these non-humans well. If there is at least a realistic, non-negligible chance that they matter for their own sakes, based on the best information and arguments currently available, then we should take reasonable, proportionate steps to consider and mitigate the risks that our actions and policies might be imposing on them. many beings might matter. How can we tell which non-humans are sentient or agentic or otherwise morally significant? Well, when proof and certainty are unavailable, we can at least collect evidence and estimate probabilities. And in particular, we can use a marker or indicator method to assess non-humans for behavioral or anatomical evidence associated with capacities like sentience and agency. With animals, we can use behavioral tests. We can ask, for example, do they nurse their own wounds? Do they respond to analgesics and antidepressants in the same ways as us? Do they make behavioral trade-offs between the avoidance of pain and the pursuit of other valuable goals? To the extent that the answer is yes, it increases the probability of moral significance. And when we ask these questions about animals, the answer is often yes. In fact, at this point, many experts in many fields are prepared to say that there is at least a realistic, non-negligible chance of moral significance in all vertebrates, mammals, birds, reptiles, amphibians, and fishes, and many invertebrates, cephalopod mollusks like octopuses, decapod crustaceans like lobsters, even insects like ants and bees. Now, with AI systems, we might not be able to trust behavioral evidence in the same kinds of ways at present, but we can look past potentially misleading behaviors at underlying architectures, and we can ask, do AI systems have computational features that we associate with capacities like sentience and agency? For example, do they have their own forms of perception, attention, learning, memory, self-awareness, social awareness, language, and reason? To the extent that the answer is yes, that once again increases the probability of moral significance. And while current AI systems might not have many of these capacities at all, we can expect that near future AI systems will have advanced and integrated versions of many of these capacities, but they happen to be built out of silicon instead of carbon. And so I argue that we should give at least minimal moral consideration to all vertebrates, many invertebrates, and many near future AI systems in the spirit of caution and humility based on the best information and arguments currently available. If we might be affecting you, we should assume that we are. In addition to having disagreement and uncertainty about which beings matter, we also have disagreement and uncertainty about what we owe everyone who matters. In ethics, we still debate whether we have a general responsibility to help each other. Some people think that we should. If I can prevent something very bad from happening without sacrificing anything comparably significant, then I should help. Other people think, no, we do not have a general responsibility to help others. Yes, I should consider the risks that I might be imposing on others, and I should reduce and repair the harms that I cause to others, but beyond that, helping is optional, not required. And then in science, we often have disagreement and uncertainty about whether our actions and policies are in fact imposing risks and harms on vulnerable others. Suppose you dump a bunch of toxic, untreated waste in a lake. And then suppose you walk by that lake the next day and you see a rabbit drowning in the middle of the lake. Did you play a role in this predicament? Well, you might not have directly imperiled the rabbit. You might not have picked her up and plopped her in the middle of the lake, but you might have indirectly imperiled her. Your toxic, untreated waste might have played a role in her getting stuck in the middle of the lake. So I argue that we should cultivate caution and humility in the face of disagreement and uncertainty about these ethical and scientific issues as well. In this case, for example, you should help the rabbit, either because you might have a responsibility to help others where possible, or at least because your own actions might have indirectly imperiled this rabbit, and so helping her is a way of reducing and repairing the harms that you are personally causing in the world. But if we do have these responsibilities, then we have to ask, how often do they arise? How often are we in a position of, if not helping, then at least reducing and repairing the harms that we cause to vulnerable others? We might be affecting many beings. We now live in the Anthropocene, a geological epoch where humanity is a dominant influence on the planet. We are now affecting non-humans all over the world, whether we like it or not, both directly and indirectly, both individually and collectively. Consider industrial animal agriculture. This food system kills hundreds of billions of captive vertebrates and trillions of captive invertebrates for food every year, to say nothing of all the wild animals killed for food every year, to say nothing of all the animals killed for other purposes every year. And this food system also very significantly increases global health and environmental threats, including threats associated with the spread of diseases, antimicrobial resistance, pollution, biodiversity loss, human-caused climate change. And then when these threats occur, they imperil humans and non-humans alike, both directly and indirectly. They imperil us directly by exposing us to diseases and fires and floods, and they imperil us indirectly by amplifying ordinary threats that we already face, like threats associated with hunger, thirst, illness, injury. For animals, they amplify threats associated with human violence and neglect. And in the future, we can expect similar dynamics to occur with emerging technologies like the development and deployment of advanced AI systems. If and when AI systems are sentient, agentic, or otherwise morally significant, we could be using them at even greater scales than we do with non-human animals right now. And then when we do that, we could also be creating and amplifying a wide range of threats. We could lose control of AI, and AI could harm us. We could retain control of AI, and we could use AI to harm each other. And AI might amplify ordinary threats that we already face, like threats associated with bias, disinformation, misinformation, and even graver threats in the future. In all of these cases, I argue that we have a responsibility to consider all affected stakeholders equitably when making decisions about our effects in the world. That includes humans, animals, and eventually, potentially, AI systems. We should reject human exceptionalism, the presumption that humanity always matters most and takes priority. If such a vast number and wide range of non-humans might matter, and if our actions and policies might be affecting them at global scales, then we owe them a lot. Now, many humans assume that we should nevertheless prioritize fellow humans because we have higher capacities for welfare. I can suffer more than a mouse, for example. But first of all, we might not always have higher capacities for welfare. I might not be able to suffer more than an elephant or a whale or in the future a very sophisticated AI system. And second of all, even if we have higher capacities for welfare than non-humans individually, we might not have higher capacities for welfare than them in the aggregate, because the non-human population is and will be much larger and much more diverse than the human population. They have more at stake than we do overall, even if we have more at stake than they do individually. Now, some humans also assume that we should prioritize fellow humans because we have closer bonds with fellow humans. But that might not always be true either. If we really are affecting non-humans everywhere, whether we like it or not, then we have morally significant bonds with them too. We are impacting them, and we have a responsibility to reduce and repair the harms that we are causing them. So I think that we might not be able to sustain our assumption that we always take priority. Now, there might be a limit to how much we can support non-humans right now because we lack the knowledge and power and political will that we need to help them. But we can still do more than we are at present, and we can also make an effort to build knowledge, build capacity, build political will towards helping them in the future. And if and when we have the ability to prioritize them in an effective and sustainable way, perhaps we should prioritize them at that point. Now, I know that some of these ideas might seem implausible. They might even seem like a distraction from the other very important issues that we face right now. But I think that we should take them seriously anyway, alongside those other very important issues. As the dominant species, we have a responsibility to ask how we might be affecting all stakeholders, including humans and animals, and eventually, potentially, AI systems. And if that leads us to uncomfortable conclusions about our treatment of non-humans, so be it. We can accept those conclusions, and we can try to build a better world for humans and non-humans alike.
Thank you, Jeff. Okay, listeners, you can get a copy of The Moral Circle wherever you get your books. And make sure you're subscribed to the Next Big Idea daily feed, because this week we'll be talking about what climate change is doing to your health, how soon we could be mining on Mars, and a whole lot more. I'm Michael Kovnat. I hope to see you tomorrow.